Welcome to In This Corner, and on this episode, I'm telling you, put the kids away, put them to bed. We're going to have a lot of fun on this one. We got two very interesting individuals, very colorful individuals in the world of combat sports. But let's get right to our first interviewee. He is a UFC Hall of Famer, winner of the UFC 8 tournament, winner of the UFC Ultimate tournament, 15-year vet of MMA, 16-year vet of pro wrestling, and he's been in 13 different movies and TV shows, all kinds of stuff. And folks, he has no filter. Don, the Predator Frye, all the way from Arizona. How you doing, Don?
I'm doing good. How the hell are you?
Well, I am
in Missouri, right?
Now, I am in Tennessee. I am in East Tennessee, and just trying to live the coronavirus pandemic life is what I'm trying to do right now.
I was going to put on my mask and my gloves to talk to you, because, it's frightening. It's just such a terror going out nowadays. It's like, are we Americans or what? We're in the USA. We kick it right, and we're scared of a little invisible bug, But let's get back to work.
The invisible enemy. Yes. So, obviously, and I was going to talk to you about that right out of the gate. I think you pretty much summed it up how you feel about it. But, what's your whole take on this and just how it's been handled over the last month and a half, 2 months?
Well, I love President Trump. I think he was doing a great job at the beginning, but I think he's just relying too much on a bunch of traitors. People have been betraying him, since before he got into the office, and they continue to. He's got to just clear everybody out and get the people he wants in the offices. And he's got a bunch of Obama holdovers who keep stabbing him in the back, and just screwing him hard.
Yeah.
Well, get rid of those people.
Well, it's a very divisive thing. And one thing that we can agree on is that, right, wrong, or indifferent, life has definitely changed for a lot of people, maybe not for the Predator, but for a lot of people, it's changed drastically economically and everything. And how do you think we're going to bounce back out of that?
Well, first, I need some toilet paper. So if anybody has extra toilet paper, send it to my house. Have you seen these idiots? Crime, and it's like they're gonna rob the toilet paper truck next. Instead of stealing cigarettes, they're gonna steal toilet paper.
I had no idea that people were making bowel movements that often that they needed that much toilet paper. I know we've never had that issue at my house.
Go outside, grab the garden hose, and clean off.
Well, you've spent a lot of time overseas, so you know what that's all about.
I got, I used to have photos of my ex-wife, but those are put to good use here.
Well, I got to ask you, since, everybody's staying inside and everybody's watching these different TV shows, what shows has Don Frye been watching, and has the Tiger King been one of those shows?
I haven't gotten around to doing that yet. I keep watching, the comedy specials, Bill Burr. I think Bill Burr's hilarious, man, and then a couple other guys, I can't even remember their names, but I watched that, and I just haven't gotten around to the Tiger King yet. I look at it, and they just look too squirrely in the photos. I'm like, man, I don't want to live with people, man.
Of all adjectives that I've heard about the Tiger King people, I think squirrely may be the best adjective I've heard. I think that is perfectly placed. They are very squirrely individuals.
Right, crime, and they look it, man. The guy's got a mullet, and he's wearing a 1972 shirt. It's like, with the chain and all that. Hey, baby. I love tigers. I love wild animals, but god dang,
Well, I
They're
got
just squirrely looking people.
they're very squirrely, and they're even worse than squirrely. But you'll have to watch that, and once you watch it, I'm going to give you a call, and I want to hear what you think about it. I see you're wearing the Ribera Steakhouse shirt, so we were going to talk about Japan anyway. So let's talk about that. Wrestling and fighting in Japan. Just tell me what it was like being Don Frye in Japan when everything was booming and so popular. It had to be wild.
Hey man, being Don Frye at any time is wild, man. Come on, anytime, anywhere. You know, it's like a circus and having a marching band around you. You know.
What did you think about Japan, though? I mean, just overall, the fans and the way people treated you, and you're a pretty big icon over there.
I was lucky. I got a real lucky part, you know, in the pro wrestling world, and then I was real lucky and fortunate in the fight world to return to that until I got injured, and then I started popping the pills too much, you know, and then my career went down. But fans are great. Fans are fantastic. You know, I love Japan. I really do. You know, if if they had a better system of government, you know, and they were allowed to have their guns and swords and knives, and I couldn't live here. I'd live there. But they would have to change so many things. That's what I don't get about people here. They're not happy with the government here. Move, leave, because there's trees that are the same in the U.S. as they are in the other part of the world. The cement's the same, the rocks are the same. Everything that's different is the system of government. If you don't like this system of government, go somewhere where they have the one you want. I like it here. Leave it the home.
You know, I agree. You know, I've had the chance, and I know you have as well, to kind of see the world out there and see all these amazing places. And you're absolutely right. I mean, if you don't like it here, there are definitely places you can go that may suit your needs and may suit who you are a lot better. So you said you loved being over there in Japan. You know, those crowds, you know, on my bucket list, you know, to even do an event or to ring announce or to do anything over in, you know, the Tokyo Dome and some of these incredible arenas. Just talk about what the difference was between one of those and then fighting in, you know, like a U.S. venue.
Well, thing is, you're talking to somebody who I can't make a logical comparison, you know, now, because when I was fighting here in the States, it was borderline illegal, you know, and the old joke was, all right, after the fights, you either go to the hospital or you go to the after party. But there's a third. You could have went to jail, you know, because they were always looking at that. It was always a toss of a coin before the fight if, you know, how the courts were going to play it. And you didn't know if they're going to shut it down or make it illegal or, you know, send the cops to stand there at the cage and make sure you don't close fist punch somebody. You know, I mean, it was, and over there in Japan, it was such a great, it wasn't just a sporting show. It was an event, you know, it was a spectacle. It was just a great event. It's like the Super Bowl every 3 or 4 months. People would get dressed up, you know, they would go over there and it would sell out. You know, you're fighting in front of 48,000, 75,000. Then that one time that 100,000, you know. So it was, I can't compare because, like I said, when I was fighting here, it was kind of a shadowy, you know, underground almost thing.
Yeah, yeah, and speaking of being over there and pride, and there's always so many questions, and I'm surprised there hasn't even been a documentary about just Pride in general, because it is such an interesting organization and it's shrouded in some dark, seedy stuff. And what can you tell me about that, just in your experience with dealing with everybody over there and all the big wigs? you know, they talk about all the corruption and all the crazy stuff that could have been going on over there. What can you tell me legally about what was going down at Pride?
Well, you know, I got stabbed in the back by Pride. You know, I did everything they wanted for years, and then at their last show, you know, Steven, can't think of his name. Who was the announcer at Pride?
Quadros. Stephen Quadros.
Quadros. Yeah, you know, he came to interview me for the last Pride. Then he said, "Hey, Saka Cabral just called, wants to know if you do him a favor and fight, you know, and then also take a major cut in pay because it was, you know, they didn't have any money." And so I did that, and then the next day I go to get paid, and they're like, "Oh, Saka Cabral-san's on the phone." What? You know, I knew something was up. And then I go in there and they give me the phone. He says, "Oh, Don-san, yesterday, Japanese IRS come to our office. They're looking for you. Matter of fact, they're downstairs right now." So I go down there and pay my way out of Japan, you know. So not only did I not get paid for that fight, you know, I had to pay more money because, you know, they were supposed to pay the taxes for us. They never did.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting.
So I'm happy. I'm not happy with that. And he's working with Bellator now, you know. So, yeah. And that's, hell, you know, I've never been invited to a Bellator event, you know. I caught him one time over there in California, and, you know, I says, "Hey, where's my money?" You know, and I haven't been invited back since. You know,
that's one thing that I never want to have to deal with in my life is Don Frye coming up to me asking for money. You know, that doesn't sound like a fun day at the office whatsoever.
He crawfished backwards, and he threw every lie he had, you know, in his arsenal out there. You know.
Well, this is an interesting thing to me, and I want to get your response on this. So, you know, Dana White and the UFC, it seems like, you know, that whole era that you were in, you know, in the early days of the UFC, and obviously you guys were pioneers and trailblazers, and it's amazing what you guys did, these one-night tournaments, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's like the ultimate incredible manly thing to do what you guys were doing. But what I'm getting at is it doesn't seem like I know you're in the Hall of Fame and all these things, but it doesn't seem like he shows a whole lot of respect for that part of the UFC, and it just doesn't really get talked about a whole lot. And I don't see you at UFC events, and I don't see Dan at UFC events, and for whatever reason, does he just have issue with you guys, or is there just some sort of disconnect between that era and, you know, the UFC now?
You know, I have no idea. Maybe, you know, he wants everybody to think that he invented the UFC, you know, and it didn't exist before he came along, you know. But, I mean, you know, he put me in the Hall of Fame, so I really can't badmouth him. You know?
Yeah, no, yeah. No, and I totally understand that. And I'm not trying to put you in a difficult position. It just doesn't seem like it gets brought up enough because real fight fans, and I mean, I've legitimately been watching since about 2004, but of course I've watched all the old stuff. That stuff amazes me. What you guys were doing with the one-night tournaments and just fighting guys that were way bigger than you, the weight classes really were not involved whatsoever. That's what people really, really dig, are those type of fights. And it just doesn't seem like it quite gets enough documentaries or enough of these specials and stuff like everything else is right now.
Right. I mean, even in Pride, there was no weight class, you know, and I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, it was like I said, it was a fight. It went from a fight to a sport to a TV show, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just not the same at all. You know, I mean, they got women doing it, and they're doing it better than the guys. You know?
Having some incredible fights. No, you're absolutely right about that. And we've talked about that before in our other interviews, so we don't have to go back to that. But that was funny stuff. Anyways, is there part of you being an old school guy and you know how rough it was back in the day and no weight classes where you look at this product and you're like, you know, what the hell is this? Or you just don't maybe think as much of what they're doing now as what you were doing back then? What's your view on it?
Yeah.
Pull no punches, Don Frye.
Yeah, you're not trying to steer it your way, right?
No. I just.
It is.
What I mean, do you feel like it was just a tougher time? Do you feel like it was just a tougher sport back then? Do you look at it as if Don Frye was in today's UFC, that, you know, you would smash these guys, or you guys were that much tougher? What do you think?
Yeah, we're tough. They're tough now too, though. You know, you can't take it away from them, but it's a different kind of tough. You know, back then, you fought to get the damn fight over with because, you know, you had another fight in 20 or 30 minutes if you won, you know? So you want to conserve some energy. And I screwed up once by not doing that, and it cost me, you know, the belt. And so, you know, you got to, there's a lot of strategy involved. Then generally you didn't have tape on the guys, you know, and so you had to make sure that you were secure in your style of fighting, and that you also understood other styles. And it was a crapshoot. You didn't know what style they were going to come in with.
Do you feel like there's any certain fighter from back in the day that really would transition over to the current UFC better than others? Because, I mean, it seems like back in the day, everybody had that one really good specialty that they had. Now, you had the boxing and the wrestling, which, you know, a lot of guys were just kind of not one-trick ponies, but they were centered around one discipline, you know, where Royce Gracie just had the jiu-jitsu for the most part, and he had a little bit of striking, but not much. And Dan had a lot of wrestling.
Striking, come on. You didn't have any striking.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He weighed 170 pounds. Who the f is he going to hurt at 175 pounds when everybody's at least 25 pounds bigger than him? You know, you got to give it to him for that. He hung in there. I mean, he hung in there with chemo. He hung in there with Dan, you know, and he pulled it off his ass.
Yeah.
You can't, you know, you'd like to badmouth him and say, but he had it. He did it, you know?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. So do you think that athlete from back in the day that had that one awesome, really good discipline would transition into the current UFC well? Because it seems like the guys now are training everything right out of the gate. You know, when they're 16, 17, 18 years old, they're already working jiu-jitsu, wrestling, striking, everything.
Right. They understand the flow. You know, there's a flow from the standing to the ground, you know, and there's a flow to get them to the ground, and then there's a flow to get your ass out of there too, you know. So there's a lot to understand. But you know what people don't understand, the guys back then, mostly all of them were national champion, multi-time national champions in their style, or multi-time world champions in their style. They weren't somebody who just got off a bar stool, you know, and started fighting. That was part of the hype. That was much of the. But no, everybody was pretty well versed in what their style was. And I think there was me and Marco Huas could have done it. I think Marco was a fantastic, you know, athlete and fighter. You know, strong as a horse. You know, throw out a name who you think. You
No,
know?
yeah, I hear you. I know what you're saying, and you're right. I think it's those guys that do have those multiple disciplines. So would you think that Ken Shamrock would make that transition well?
Well, Ken did for a while, and then him and I fought, and like they say, neither one of us was the same since. We both left something in the ring that night, and neither one of us were the same since then.
Yeah.
But Ken did make the change for a while.
Was there? I'm going to switch gears here, and we'll talk wrestling for a minute. We got a lot of wrestling fans that are going to be watching this. With professional wrestling, you did a lot, and obviously did a ton in Japan. Was there anything that you regret not maybe doing more with not just WWE, but any of the other organizations? And was there opportunity to do so, and you just didn't take it?
No, my opportunity was with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I was loyal to them. I wrestled for them the first 2 years on a handshake, and then we did a contract, and then once they had me signed to a contract for a year's salary, they used the shit out of me.
Oh yeah.
Before that is match for match, and then I screwed up. I wasn't smart enough to research and find out how the Japanese do business. They, Scott Ferrazzo had told me a story of this, that, how they do business. It just didn't sink in. A couple other people, but, they wait until the last minute and then they'll present you an offer, or they want to hear your offer. And I was used to being a few months out and start negotiating the contract. So when they didn't do that, I thought that they were going to be my walking papers. So I contacted Pride, and so I went to Pride because I thought New Japan didn't want me, but they didn't get a chance to present their offer. So I basically, stabbed him in the back, walked all over him. So, it was my fault for not knowing how they do business. But I think New Japan Pro Wrestling was a great organization when I was there. And then they, it's like a roller coaster ride. And every wrestling company experiences it, and the whole business experienced it. But after I left, it went down and it's not because of me. It's just the timing of the era. And then now they're back up again, so criminy.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And with wrestling, it's just so different from fighting. And I've had a chance to work in both areas, and just the way the promoters handle themselves, and just the way the etiquette is, and the things about wrestling they're just so different than fighting, in my estimation anyways. What about that? Did you really enjoy? What's that?
Etiquette is the proper word.
Yeah. Well, what I wanted to ask you was, and I asked Dan this as well when I talked to him, and did you really enjoy the whole process of wrestling, or was it a thing where you knew you could make good money at it? You were good at it, or did you really enjoy those matches? And were there certain guys that you really just enjoyed working with?
Yeah, there's certain guys I f***ed it up because, I didn't learn more, didn't learn enough, I was real stiff, which, nobody appreciated, and because I was just so nervous because, they taper out the match, and I couldn't remember, so I would be going, oh man, what do I do next? So I couldn't relax and enjoy it, because I was so worried about making the other guy doing it right that I up from overworrying. And, I got to work with Ming. Ming was great, Scott Norton was great, a couple other guys, they were just fun to be in the ring with. Scott Norton took care of me. He carried me every match we had.
That's a dude that is extremely underrated, just as a worker in general. Just an absolute beast. He's a hell of a wrestler.
Ming, you know, you gotta keep your eyes open because you don't know he's there. He's so soft, you know. He's such a good worker.
But they say one of the toughest guys. I mean, it's always, anytime you ever ask somebody the toughest guy, it always goes to Ming when you talk about professional wrestlers. How do you think if he would have just made up his mind and went into MMA, you think he would have done just as good as he did in wrestling or better?
Done great. I think he'd done great, you know, because he just cock strong, you know, and then the Samoans are known for being so tough and having such a thick skull. You know, you can pound on them, and it doesn't affect them, you know. But, I mean, he was a wild man. He was, you hear stories of him, he's scary. You know, he went over there, bit a guy's nose off. You know, he almost gouged out some guy's eyeballs. You know, crime, and who the hell wants to deal with something like that? Some guy came across the bar, he looks like wrong, he comes over there, bites your nose off.
Wait, listen, when you are surprising or freaking out Don Frye, that means that you're the real deal.
And he's the nicest, most caring guy in the world, too. You know, I mean, it's just one side of the fence or the other, I guess, you know.
Let's do some real quick rapid fire name association. And I want you to give me a few words here if you can. Fedor Emelianenko.
Oh, man. Awesome. Just plain awesome, you know. And unfortunately, you know, like everybody, we stick around too long, you know.
Okay. What about John Jones?
That's the saddest part of it. John Jones, it's another sad story. John Jones, amazing athlete, amazing fighter, but, you know, he's just, the demons are beating on him. I don't know, you know, I fought him. You know, Jones is fighting him, but, you know, sometimes he's losing more than he's winning. And that's just sad, you know, because he could have been the greatest ever.
What about Brock Lesnar?
Brock, you know, he's an amazing athlete, you know, because he's up on top at the WWF or E for so long, and you know, then he comes in to the UFC and you know wins the title there. I mean, he's an impressive athlete to be able to make that. I ended up doing both of them, man, you know, because I couldn't figure out when to be soft and when to be hard, you know. I got it wrong.
I got one more for you. Tank Abbott.
Tank, you know, him. I saw an interview with him saying, I cheated my way to the ultimate, you know. And he had him. He got Cal Worsham in the first round. Everybody knew Cal Worsham almost died back in May, you know. He had a broken rib, punctured lung, you know, so there was no way he could have recovered in 6 or 7 months, you know. And then he had that Tank had that easy glass jaw Joe, you know, in the quarterfinals or semifinals. And then he's gonna blame me, he's gonna stir all this. So what he's seeing is he blames his third divorce for the failure, or he blames his third divorce on the failure of his first 2 divorces. You know, you lost. I didn't kick your ass, but I won the fight. You know, I went down, got up. He went down, couldn't get up.
Yep. Well, there it is. There it is. I was hoping I'd get a good one out of you. I knew I was going to get a strong F-bomb if I hit you with the right name. So I'm glad that we did that. Don, anything coming up here? I mean, I know everything's kind of frozen right now, but acting-wise, any sort of appearances coming up that you know of or anything that's maybe in the works?
Partner, everything's frozen up, you know.
Yeah.
I've been recovering, you know, for the last few years, the last decade, basically, you know. I've been, you know, I had a bunch of doctors get addicted to cutting my back open, you know. And yeah, it's been a wild decade, but the last 2 years were really wild. And so I've been recovering, you know, and I had an offer to do the Michael J. White Western, and but there's no way I can get on a horse, you know, or I'd have to be leaning. I'd have to either sit at a poker table or leaning against the wall, you know.
No doubt, man.
But I'm getting better. So if you're watching Mr. White, give me a call, partner. I'm getting better.
You got to, I mean, ask for one more thing. Give a message to America and the American people that are scared right now and stressed out about the coronavirus. Do you have a message for America from Don Frye?
Yeah, well, you know, if they're scared, they're probably liberal Democrats, you know. So get your head out of your. It's an invisible virus, which isn't that tough. I think the death rate is 0.01%. You know, it's not that worrisome. Crimey, you have a bigger chance of the flu or getting into a car wreck or falling out of an airplane without even ever getting on an airplane. Crimey, we're the United States of America. We're the toughest people ever walked this planet. Knock it off.
Don, amazing. Thank you for giving me a few minutes. I needed that. I think the world needed a little Don Frye in their lives. So I do appreciate it, and have fun out there, out in the barn and horseshoeing and doing everything else you're doing.
Yeah, vote Trump, baby. Yeah.
And there he is. He is the Predator, Don Frye, and that's how we are going to wrap it up.